Hello gamers and welcome to Game Warp. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim. Up next, our review of Rise of Balloons. Rise of Balloons is a puzzle game with a unique backstory set in a dystopian industrial revolution, this depression setting. You play in third person as a little girl carrying a red balloon. Each level is filled with 3 sad children that need to maneuver around with various balloons to help reach them in order to brighten their day. There are 3 different balloons that have different purposes to aid your endeavor. Currently, the game has 18 levels that mold a complete story. Rise of Balloons is by developer Mirum Studio, and it's their debut title. We actually had an interview with them last year about this puzzle experience when they first launched it on mobile.
Yeah, as you said before, we spoke to the co-founder of the studio, Pierre-Olivier Colbin, who obviously came on early in this show's life cycle to obviously discuss Rise of Balloon, and as anyone who's you can probably see from obviously the footage that we have here, this is a very sort of different game when we obviously think of the setting which it's actually set for, this revolution depression setting for. This isn't a game about warfare and intrigue and stealth. This is in fact just about trying to bring colour to this world of greyness through the simple act of providing children with balloons. At the same time, it's taking a very simple but effective mechanic by using different balloons to complete different objectives, such as, like, we have a guiding balloon, we have a glue balloon. You will, as the course of the game, you will get access to these different balloons, and you have to learn how to charge the balloons, and obviously the best way to guide your little child character, who obviously, much like a lemming, is following this balloon with a little question to what's going on around them, making this certainly one of the more original mobile titles that now obviously has been transferred over to PC.
So, I mean, I guess it's important to kind of do a little comparison. Rise of Balloons on mobile was a very unique experience because you actually use your finger to kind of guide the balloon over, and it's a nice little experience that works really well on mobile. And when it transferred over, now they have a bigger opening scene. There are various cutscenes that you can actually see things that are going on as you activate certain switches, what the cause and effects are in certain levels. There's, I believe, 2 or 3 extra levels from the mobile version. I mean, it's a fun experience. You can still see like a polish to the to even the graphics that was on mobile to now the PC version. There are many more details, and while it hasn't expanded too much, a lot of the really cool levels now, because you can maneuver it with your mouse and stuff, actually it's pretty fun to do.
I think with the PC version, it certainly gives you a lot more sort of flexibility. It's especially with when we look at the mobile version, it's very much governed by the size of the screen you're playing it on. That sort of added level of difficulty, let alone the touchscreen responsiveness. Obviously, when we're using the mouse for the PC version, you have got a higher level of responsiveness, which, when you're looking at some of these puzzles, and certainly when you look at the fact that you're obviously controlling the balloon itself, it's not the case of you're pointing to locations for the balloon to go to. You've actually got a very strong sense of control over the balloon. So having the ability to finally be able to use a mouse was a much welcomed change, and certainly the PC version adds a little more flash to the proceedings, obviously, because we have that ability to access more increased power that obviously you wouldn't have with the mobile version. But both versions still stand on the same sort of core merits, really, when you're playing the game. Yes, we're adding in a little more flash with the PC version, but you're still going to get the same gameplay on both versions here, which I felt was very nice. And the fact that they've not tried to reinvent the wheel when they've come to doing their PC version, they've kept what works with the mobile game and obviously made those little tweaks where they can, just to make it a little more polished for the PC version.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the standout points is we talked about it before, and like even during our interview with the developer, and that's really the fact that this game has a very unique art style. It looks kind of hand-drawn, and it has this really nice setting. You can see a lot of detail, and matching it with the storyline of, it's a very positive storyline, and it's guided by the fact of just, finding positiveness by this, acts of goodwill by one person. And that I find that sort of positive storyline really helps, helps the immersiveness of the story. While at the same time, I mean, the puzzles do get increasingly difficult, and while it looks very cartoonish and it looks like it could be a pretty simple experience, it actually can get pretty tricky between, trying to not pop your red balloon, which is kind of like your life source, while at the same time trying to maneuver around with which balloons are going to work. There are different lengths maybe that will, and then there's going to be spikes, and then there's different like boxes you can move, and all these things come together, and as the story builds to the end, it actually gets pretty complicated. Some of these puzzles are, relatively hard to get through.
Yes, there's definitely a certain challenge to this game, which, despite the actual simplisticness of the story, I mean, obviously this is about this idea of happiness that we're all seeking, and the idea that just something as simple as a balloon can bring happiness. It's that sort of nice sort of story that we obviously saw in something like Seasons After 4, where it just reminds us that just because we're creating obviously games for an adult audience, it doesn't mean that we have to like either paint them in candy-coated colours or at the same time beat you down with rather grim environments. This somehow walks the tightrope between those two ideals. At the same time, unlike Seasons After 4, I didn't feel that I perhaps stumbled into like a children's game, that I was like getting some sort of guilty pleasure from playing. This is, as I said, it's this game which has this storyline which on the surface looks like it could be aimed at children, but at the same time it's got a very sort of adult puzzle mechanic, so there's definitely a rewarding challenge to this game. And when we obviously look at it initially, and the fact that you're guiding a balloon, you're going through spiked areas and stuff, this looks like the sort of thing that's going to turn into absolute nightmare fuel. But thankfully, it never goes into that sort of rage quit sort of level of frustration. There's a real perseverance that it instills in the player in this game, and I thought that was kind of nice. It knows just the right level of difficulty to have, and I think that's certainly the advantage of having launched the mobile title, the fact that they've obviously had this time to tweak it, and so when we come to the PC version, that they've ironed out a lot of the bugs that we saw when we originally played that mobile version. So it's nice that they've not just said, oh, we're just going to transfer it across, give it a flash of code. We're actually going to correct some of the things that perhaps needed to be fixed in the mobile version at the same time, and I think certainly it's certainly made it a more enjoyable experience. What was already an enjoyable experience to begin with. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one other thing that I want to talk about would be level design. Is that, what makes a puzzle game not feel like it's walking the same paths over and over again is that there are various levels and various different approaches that you like. Maybe not different approaches that you can take, but more the fact that each level has kind of a distinct design to them. Like certain levels are just kind of like a one-shot deal. Certain levels are just, there's parts where you need to go down. There are parts where you need to maneuver switches. You need to move, activate something, and something shifts. There's like some levels are incredibly horizontal. Some are incredibly vertical. So like all these things I think are, very interesting to see, like. And on top of that, this is like I said, this is only 18 levels or so. And it's a very, it's a self-contained story, pretty much. There's a beginning and there's an end to this story, and which is very rare, especially for a game going onto a mobile platform where people usually try to keep building the game and having continuous levels. I feel like the self-containment really helps in just telling the story.
Right, so Rise of the Balloons, what are we rating this one?
My rating hasn't changed from my mobile game one. I would still give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, and I'm exactly the same. It's still going to be a 4 out of 5. This is certainly a really great independent title. If you're playing it on either mobile or PC, whatever version works best for you, I think it's going to fall more down to player preference than the game itself. So it's nice to finally have the option to choose either one. But no, this is certainly a promising launch title from Miriam Studios, and I'm excited to obviously see how they follow it up.
Definitely. So this wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your feedback and any game recommendations you have. You can head over to our home base to read our written reviews at thatmomentin.com. To get gaming news and releases every single day, you can follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game War Podcast. You can also hang out with us on our Twitch channel where we stream at Game War Podcast, and there's also our Instagram where we post our gaming obsessions, also with the handle Game War Podcast. Till next time, bye!